Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and it is officially autumn. I have colored my hair for the new season, and I'm really in the mood to do some fall projects. So one thing I love to do in the fall is have little projects going that I can do upstairs while I'm watching television or around the coffee table with the kids. And one project that's really fun is quilling. And if you could see from this scrapbook page, I just took these pictures the other day. We went apple picking. If you look at this little embellishment down here in the corner, that is an apple that I quilled. Now quilling is done simply with strips of paper, and you can make your own. I sometimes like to use this little paper shredder, and I will just crank in scraps of cardstock and end up with nice quilling strips that way. You can use a paper cutter to trim strips, or you can purchase them, and I love the way these strips come. They're by the paper company and they sell them at Joann's, and they're just in a nice tube so they stay straight and they don't bend. But there are a lot of companies out there that sell quilling strips. Sometimes when you buy them, they come in this kind of long, kind of 24-inch length, and they come bound on each end, and you simply just pull a strip from the pad to use. So they come a lot of different ways, and they're very inexpensive to buy pre-cut, and we're going to go over some of the tools, trips, and techniques of quilling today. So let's get started. Okay, let's look at some of the tools we're going to use today. The first thing you need to get started in quilling, and probably the only tool you actually have to buy, is called a slotted quilling tool. This is my favorite. It is by a company called, I think it's Lake City Crafts. Let me see, I have another tool by them I can read. Lake City Crafts, and they supply a lot of really great quilling supplies, so that's a great place to start if you're looking to get into quilling. This piercer tool is another really handy one to have. You probably already have a paper piercer that you can use, and what is really nice about this, you can use it to poke holes in your paper if you want to, add a little design that way, but you can also use it to dab into a puddle of glue and then glue your quilled pieces down. This tool here has a slot on the end that you slide your paper into. Let me show you really quickly. You would slide your paper right in here. It's kind of hard to do on camera because I have to be kind of close. And then you would just start twirling it. Now I usually twirl away from myself, but I guess it's up to personal preference because it'll work the same way. But you just keep twirling, and a lot of times I'll kind of put my finger against the end of it as a guide. The slot on this is about 1/4 of an inch deep, so if you want to quill something a little thicker, you have that ability. Like if you were going to do roses, I'm not going to show you roses in this video because they're a little bit trickier, but if you're quilling a rose where you need to twirl and fold, it helps to have that extra length in your slot. There are other companies out here that make them. I've found them at the dollar store before, plastic ones, and they work just as well. So basically this is what you do when you quill. You twirl up a piece of paper on a tool, then you give it a little turn backwards and you pull it out, and then you have a nice round coil. It looks like it's out of focus, but you get the idea. Now sometimes you want a nice tight coil like that, but other times you want to have looser coils. So what I do when I want a looser coil is I basically just let it spring out a little bit. Now your coil will, the size of your coil depends on how much you let it release, also the length of paper that you use. When you have a size you like, you simply put a little glue under the flap, and that will keep it on the last flap here, that's this loose end, and this loose end here, and that will keep it from unraveling. So my work surface, let me just show you my work surface here. It is simply a piece of foam core. Cardboard will work just fine, and I have taped I don't know if you can see that shiny Scotch tape there. I've taped a piece of waxed paper to it, and that will give me an area that I can quill on and I can glue on, and I don't have to worry about anything getting stuck to this because the wax paper will let it go. There's another tool that's kind of fun to use when you're quilling, and this is called a quilling comb. This is by Quilled Creations, another company that has a lot of really nice patterns. And to use this is really fun. And you'd find a lot of patterns online if you wanted to, but you'd basically start it on one of these bottom tines. You could bring it up the top, and each time you wrap it around, you just catch it in a lower tine of the comb here. I'm zoomed in a bit, so if I go off camera now and then, I apologize. But as you go, you end up with this lovely fanned design. And again, I'm doing this on a video. I'm not really paying that much attention to lining things up properly, but see, you can get a really pretty look that way. So that's also quilling, even though it's not your general rounded quilling. And after you have it all glued down, you would just slide off the design. today we're going to just do some basic quilling with a slotted quilling tool. You can make your own quilling strips by trimming 1/8 inch strips of paper, or you could purchase them already trimmed. Both ways are great. And I thought you might like to know how I did the apple. So I've got one right here. And the thing I want to mention about quilling, the great thing is it doesn't have to be perfect. And there's no really right way or wrong way. There's some basic techniques. I think the imperfect ones look a little better. That's why I chose the less perfect apple to go on my scrapbook page here, because I like the way it looked better. So we're just going to make a few things, and you'll see how easy it is. Some other things that are handy. This book right here, I highly recommend it. It's by Klutz. It's called Twirled Paper, and the tool that comes with it has a nice thick handle, and it's a lot easier to grasp if you're working with kids, or I can get the package open here, or if you're got arthritis or something like that. That handles, there we go, I'm opening it wrong. That handle is a lot easier to work with. You can see it's a lot wider, and you still have that nice metal end with the slot on it for your quilling. In fact, maybe I'll use that. That might be a little easier to see in the video. All right. Okay. So to make the apple, what we're going to do, we've got green paper, we've got black, we've got red, and we have white. So first, we'll start with a piece of white, and I've got this 24-inch long strip here. Well, maybe it's not quite that long. It's probably 18 inches long, and I'm cutting it in half. Since I know I need to have two pieces that are equal, the two sides of the apple I want to be equal, I just want to make sure that the two pieces I'm going to start twirling are the same size. So I'm going to add the end right into the end of my slotted quilling tool. Now sometimes if your kids use your tools, they might get glue in the slot, and you might have to clean them out from time to time. There. Got some lint in there or something. Alright, and I'm going to twirl away from myself, and you can see this bigger handle makes it a little easier to grip. Of course, the other tool I was showing you earlier would take up less space in your scrapbook box. So, use whatever you think would work best. Alright, so I don't want a tight coil. See, that's a nice little tight coil like a flower center, but since I'm going to want something that's a little looser, what I'm going to use is this drill bit gauge to make sure I have a couple coils that are the same size. You can buy quilling boards that have the gauge already on them for about 20 bucks, but I'm the frugal crafter, so of course I want to find something that will do the job that's a little bit less expensive. Now the nice thing about these little drill bit gauges, my husband gets them in the mail all the time from the Handyman Club of America, whatever. They try to get you to buy their magazine. Anyway, they send these in the mail, but if you don't get any in the mail, you can buy them pretty cheaply at the hardware store, or ask any of your handyman friends if they happen to have one that they want to part with. So I'm going to twirl another one of those right up here, easy as can be. And also, I'd rather tear the ends of the strips rather than cut them. It'll give you an easier, smoother surface to glue on. You won't have that harsh edge, and the end will just pretty much disappear. All right. Okay, and you know what? I didn't put any glue on that. Let's put this in the other guide that's the same size here, and let it unravel till it reaches the edge. Now for gluing, I don't go right straight from the bottle. What I do on my little protected quilling board here is I squeeze out a gob of white glue, and for some reason white glue seems to work the best. Just plain old Elmer's white glue or school glue, any just plain white glue that's pretty liquid works the best. You don't need to thin it, just use it the way it is. And then I either use my little tool here or a toothpick to pick up a little glue and just dab it under the loose end and stick it down. That gives me just the right amount. If you put too much glue, it's going to take a long time to dry. So you just want a little dot. Alright, whoopsie. It's trying to jump out of my my fancy little tool gauge here. Alright, now the nice thing about these coiled pieces is that they dry almost instantly. I'm going to set these aside. And now I want two semicircles. I think that one wound out a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch and mold it into a semicircle, because our apple shape is going to have two of those white sides next to each other. So you just push and pinch. You do this all just pretty much by looking at it and figuring out what you need for shapes. Alright, so I've got two semicircles there. I'm going to glue those together on my protected surface. I probably shouldn't have chose white for the first project because it's a little tricky to see, But what I'm going to do is just add a little glue to the edge here and slide them together. Now I'm going to need a strip of red, which hopefully I already have cut in my box here. Oh, by the way, I store my Quilling stuff in this art bin box with some, it's like a fishing tackle box, and I just put the strips in the columns here, and it works just fine and dandy. I think it's probably one of the best ways to store them, because then you have everything you need. If you're going to a crop and you want to bring something along, you have everything you need right there. Sometimes I'm not really well planned, big surprise, when I head out to a scrapbooking crop, so that helps to have some project that I can just go ahead and do. So I don't want a full long strip, so I ripped off this one that's about 9 inches long. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the end, and I'm going to start wrapping this around the 2 half circles that I made. Now the great thing about quilling is that you can really be creative and you can come up with any shape you want, because you can quill circles, you can quill squares. Everything starts out as a circle, but the way you pinch it is how it ends up. And we'll go over some of the basic shapes in just a couple minutes here. This is very difficult to do on video and keep it in frame and shape it as I go, but I am doing my best, so hopefully you get the drift here. If you start to unravel, just pull it as you go. Since I'm going around these 2 shapes, I'm not using a tool, I'm just using my fingers and trying to keep it all flush, all the coils flush with each other by pinching it as I go. My camera's trying to focus, it's trying its hardest here. Alright, a little bit of glue under the flap. I'm going to pinch it for a second. Now I want my apple to have a little bit of an indent on the top where I'm going to put my stem, so I'm going to just use my fingernail to kind of push a little indent in there. Okay, I can taper it down the bottom a little bit. Alright, so I've got this little apple-y shape there. And now I want to do a stem. Maybe I'll do brown. I got a little brown here. So I'm just going to cut up a very short piece. This piece is probably about 3 inches long. And I'm going to twist that into a coil. And actually, I don't often use my little drill bit coil guide thing. I usually just pretty much eyeball it. So I'm just going to coil that up quickly. I notice I turn my tool like quarter turn towards myself, and that releases the coil. And I'm just going to kind of let it kind of release a little bit, and I'm just going to pinch it and just give it a little bit of a flush end. So I've got this little kind of wedge shaped piece that I'm going to use for the stem. A little bit of glue. Whoops, that's a lot of glue. Underneath there. And a little bit of glue on the top of my apple. And I'm just going to set that right on my board because it can set up right there. I don't need to hold that in place to dry. Now I need a little leaf. I have to apologize. I had a cold last week, and I had my daughter home, one of my daughters home from school most of the week that they thought she might have whooping cough. Luckily that was not the case, but boy, we were a little worried there for a bit. But luckily we just have the plain old ordinary uneventful cold. So if I sound a little stuffy, I apologize. So here I'm just coiling up a little piece of green that I'm going to use for a leaf. Again, quarter turn, pull it off to release it, and I'm going to do a marquee shape. And so basically I'm just releasing it enough so that it will bend. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue. You always glue it first before you try to bend it or pinch it into another shape, because otherwise it might unravel on you. Okay, and to do a marquee shape, you simply, or you could call it a leaf shape if that makes more sense, you simply evenly pinch both ends. There, and I got this little leaf. And I want to put a little bit of glue on both sides because I want to stick it to the stem and stick it to the apple, and that will make it a little bit more stable. Ooh, that's a pretty big leaf, a little out of proportion, but hey, it's art, right? There we go. Maybe I will zoom in just a wee bit and see if I can get that a little bit better for you here. All right, it's a little out of focus, but you can see the apple and how easy it is. Now you could add a couple little dabs of marker or something to put seeds in, or you could do teeny tiny little coiled circles and kind of slide them in between the coils if you wanted to make seeds that way. A couple things that I've quilled in the past. And here we've got the sunshine. Now we started off, of course, with a circle, a really loose circle, and then all around it I made triangles. So I simply made my circle and pinched one end and then 2 corners on the bottom to make a triangle. And I'll show you how to make a triangle real quick. I'm just going to use this green because it's really dark and easy to see. And I'll use the whole 18-inch strand here that I have because then I can do it a little bit bigger. Again, you put it in the slot and start curling away from yourself. All right, we're twirling and twirling and twirling. This is really fun to do. Just if you're at night and you're watching TV, I tend to fall asleep if I don't have something to do while I'm watching TV. So you can have this little project going, and at the end of the night, you've actually got a few cute embellishments for cards or scrapbook pages. And remember, the length that you start off with determines how big your quilt piece is going to be at the end. So I'm going to release it a little bit so you have a nice loose coil. I'm going to dab a little glue. Now if you have a design that is kind of complex and you're having a hard time gluing it, like look at this little tutu here, isn't that cute? We use the triangles on the bottom there. You can actually use pins. The reason we start off with foam core or cardboard as our base is that we can use like sewing pins, straight pins, to hold our piece in place while the glue dries. So that's another reason we use the padded surface there. Okay, so this is an extremely loose coil. So if I want to make a triangle, I'm going to pinch 2 corners down here, and then I'm going to pinch the remaining corner right up here. And then we have a triangle. To do a square, you'd pinch the 2 opposing sides. So basically you're doing circles, squares, teardrops. See, the teardrop on this flamingo, that could be used as a flower petal. That could be used as an eye. It could be used as a teardrop. It could be used as all sorts of different things. So you just kind of look around and see, you know, the different shapes and what you want to create, and that's how you make your patterns. Here I've got a couple teardrops for wings. Then I, just like we did with the apple, I glued them together, and then I went around with a red strip. And then I got a circle for the head, a triangle for the nose, the beak, and then I used the quilling comb to do the tail. So, you know, whatever you look at, you can really make with the quilling, which is really fun. Like these little ballet slippers, instead of doing just a basic teardrop, I flattened the bottom. And then we've got little basic ballet slippers. There's really tons of things you can do. Here's a little crown made with triangles, diamonds. I'll show you quickly how to do a diamond. A diamond is pretty much the same pattern as a square. I'll show you on this short piece here. You just coil up your strip. So you can get pretty quick at it once you get a little practice. Turn it towards yourself to let go of the paper. A little bit of glue. So for a diamond or square, you're pinching opposing sides. Let's see, I hope you can see that. It's kind of a small piece. But I'm pinching the opposing sides and I'm squashing them together so I end up with 4 points. So that's how you would do a diamond or a square. A square, you would just kind of make them a little bit more even. You could pinch them opposing ways and you got a little square there. So as you can see, there are a lot of different things you can make with your quilling. Here I did 4 ovals and I glued them together side to side, and I just made some little spirals with the quilling tool. And you'll do this by mistake. The spiral will become your friend because this is probably going to be one of the first things you do because you're there and you're making you're coiling up your strip and you get it all ready to go and you forget to do the quarter turn back towards yourself and you pull off the tool and look, you've got a spiral. So that will happen to you, but you will find that you can use those little spirals when you are doing your different designs there. So, you know, there's no right way, no wrong way, just experiment and have fun. This butterfly here uses one of those spirals for the body. So there's so many different fun things you can do. I was just fooling around the other day and I did a skull and crossbones. And to do the skull, I did a very loose white coil. And then I coiled up 2 black ones. I just stuck them in between the coils for the eyes. Same thing for the mouth and nose. These, I just kind of made some scrolls. You don't have to keep everything in a circle. Here on this octopus, you could see I just twirled the paper and let it release and just glued little strips underneath the circle to make the octopus. And oh, by the way, googly eyes are very fun with your quilling. So there you go. You've got a lot of different ideas to make some lovely quilled accents for your crafts, your cards, your scrapbook pages. Another technique I want to show you is how to do a fringed flower because this really packs a lot of wow factor in your projects. So basically what you want to do is use your paper trimmer to trim like an inch wide strip. It can be anywhere from like a 1/4 inch to 1.5 inches, or even longer if you want, but I find an inch works really good. And then I'm using some fringing scissors, whoops, I cut too far, to cut almost through the strip and make a nice long fringe strip. They do make quilling fringers. They're about $50 though. They're expensive and they only cut one little strand at a time. But these fringing scissors that I got at AC Moore, I believe, for about $7 do the trick just fine. So when you want to make a fringed flower like this, it's very easy, and you're using the same exact technique as you did before. You're going to start with your tool and you're going to add whatever you want for your flower center color to be into the tool first. And you're going to twirl it away from you as always, and keep your finger flush to the end so you can make a nice tight flat coil. You are not going to release it when you get to the end. You're going to keep letting it stay tight, and you're going to glue it and keep it on the tool. So here I'm getting to the end, and you can, you know, cut your paper shorter if you want a smaller center, but I do recommend starting off with a center if you're doing the fringe flowers, otherwise they get really bulky. Alright, so keeping it on the tool, I'm just adding a little dab of glue here, and I'm going to hold it down. Now what you need to do is attach your fringed paper to the tool, which can be a little awkward. It's definitely a little awkward the first time you do it. So you want to put a little bit of glue on there and let it set up. Not too much because it will take longer to dry. And then just add your paper to it. And I like to let it overhang just a little bit, so it's actually like hanging back behind there about 1/16 of an inch, so it's not flush with the green one. And then, once that glue sets, which it really isn't set, but I'm just going to go ahead so you don't have to wait, you just keep on twirling with that new paper attached, and that's how you do multicolored coils. It's very easy, very fun. You'll find the sky's the limit when it comes to this art form. When you get to the end, you just need a little more glue. You don't need to glue it as you go. A dab on the end will do just fine. Oh, that's a lot. Just hold it for a second before you take it off the tool. And again, you're going to just slightly turn it towards yourself and slide it off. Now, to make it look cute like this, you're just going to fluff out the fringes. You could curl the ends around a pencil if you want a really curly flower like a chrysanthemum. You can keep adding more strips if you want a really, really fringy full flower. I think these would be so cute on a tag on a Christmas present with a little stamping in the background. It's such an easy technique. And if you don't have the fringing scissors, just use regular scissors and cut strips 1/8 of an inch or so. It really won't take that much longer. It's such an easy technique. There's so much you can do with it. And I hope you give it a try because it's so much fun. I had one more thing I wanted to show you, and that's how I store my finished quilled creations. And what I like to use is a regular CD case. This one happens to be an oversized CD case that some stamps I used to buy came in. And the great thing about a CD case, if you can find a closed one, it's even better, is that you can layer your quilled creations here in the case, and then you can set the lid right on top, and it protects them, and they don't move around too much when you're storing them, and you can stack a bunch on a shelf and they're not going to get crushed. So that's a great way to store them in case you want to make a whole bunch up and then use them at a future time, which I do all the time. So thanks so much for watching. I am so glad you spent your afternoon with me, and try some quilling. Till next time, happy crafting. Bye-bye.